Welcome to Mixing Investment for Jewelry Casting. After choosing the correct base for your piece of carved wax or 3D printed resin and attaching it to the base, choose the correct number that will correspond to your flask. Make sure to compare the width and the height of your flask to find the appropriate amount of water in investment to mix. In my case here, my flask is a 2A. I will need 153 milliliters of water and 340 grams of investment. The next step, if you wish, this is optional, is to spray a light coating of vacuum coat, and this is to prevent bubbles from sticking to your model. Simply spray a couple spray on each side, and that is plenty. Put your flask onto your base very carefully so you do not dislodge your models. Your flask needs to go all the way down and be really secure with the base. To calculate the investment that we need, we use a scale inside a plastic bag. Turn the scale on, put your plastic bowl on, and then use the tare button to bring the scale to 0 with the plastic bowl on. Make sure that you use the jewelry investment and not the plaster of Paris. And open the bag while wearing your respirator and scoop up what you need and measure at the scale the correct amount. You may have to go back and forth a couple of times to arrive at the desired amount. Completely seal and close the investment container before moving on to measuring your water, so no amount of water whatsoever get in with the investment. Measure your water using the still water that's in one of the jugs, and measure very precisely the amount of water you need from your chart in milliliters. Take your time and be precise. Should you ever need to use water from the tap, note that the warmer the water, the faster the chemical reaction will be when you're mixing your investment. Add your investment to a black rubber flexible bowl and then add your water. At this point, start timing yourself. You have about 1 minute to mix this with your hand. The goal here is to break down the clumps. Make sure you wear gloves. This is really harsh on your skin. So simply break all of the clumps and have a look at your texture. It should resemble crepe batter. So thinner than pancake batter, but not liquid like milk. Similar to crepe batter. After that, add this to your mixing bowl. Clean the edge and wet the edge with a little bit of water so the seal is good. Quickly go to the combination unit or whip mix, plug it in, take the clear rubber hose and insert the end on the top of your mixing bowl. This will be suctioning the air out of the investment as the machine is mixing. Insert the top of the mixing bowl into the bottom of the combination unit, and this will turn it on automatically and start mixing as well as suctioning the air out. Hold this between 30 seconds and 1 minute maximum. Then turn on the combination unit and put the mixing bowl onto the lever arm. This will provide vibration while still sucking out the bubbles, the air from the mixing bowl. Hold this for 30 seconds to 1 minute maximum. Remove the suction clear hose and gently pour your investment into your flask, keeping your flask on an angle and pouring along the wall of the investment. Tilt and keep a good look at your model to make sure that you don't trap a large bubble of air within the model. And keep pouring to the very top. An optional way of pouring your investment is called the dip method, and is to dip your models before pouring the investment. So take the top flask off and very carefully hold the base and dip into the investment. Take your finger to make sure that there's no bubbles created, or a brush or a toothpick. Then very quickly put the flask back on and pour following the first method. This is more used for larger tree when you have multiple objects onto your base and air can get caught easier, or if you have large undercuts in your model. I don't recommend you start doing that when you're first doing investment. Without wasting any time, go back to your combination unit and turn the machine on with the on-off switch. Then very carefully hold your flask above the lever and press down, putting your flask at the edge, not in the middle of the black button. Putting it in the middle may cause your model to separate from the base. Only do this for about 10 seconds. This is just to remove the last few bubbles that may have made their way against your model. Immediately put your flask onto a tray and transport the tray with the flask on a separate counter away from the counter where you're working. Do not touch your flask at all for the following hour. It is very important that it doesn't get moved at all, or the investment will crack and you will have issues in your casting. If your combination unit was turned off, turn it back on and let it run for a few minutes, or during the time you take to clean up the area. Never ever put investment down the sink. It only goes into the garbage. So use your glove and scrape off all the leftover investment, and then use paper to remove all of the investment from inside. If you made a mistake and put investment down the sink, immediately tell the lab demonstrator or one of your instructors. Then you can do a final rinse to remove the leftover investment. And it's very important to dry the metal mixing bowl really well, inside and outside, as well as the paddle that goes inside the bowl. Then clean up the counters and the floor if you've spilled on the floor. So use the provided rag, wet well, and clean usually a couple of times. Investments as a way of sticking around. Have a look at the end of the clear hose. If any investment made its way into the clear hose, tell your instructor or the lab demonstrator. You can now turn on the combination unit and unplug. After 1 hour, you can come back and then remove your base. Make sure that you remove the base to let the investment dry really well, but also it should not be going in the oven as it will burn off. Put on a cake rack so there's good airflow all around the top and the bottom of your flask. And then it's time to clean the base. Use an old toothbrush, soap and water, and brush well all of the investment from the base and let dry.